often think of our voice as something automatic. We speak and it just works until one day it doesn't. And when your voice changes or disappears, it is not just a physical loss. It can shake identity, confidence, connection, and even purpose. Today's conversation is about resilience, grief, adaptation, and the unexpected ways strength can emerge when something essential is taken away. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, the space where we explore resilience, inner strength, and the human capacity to adapt through life's hardest challenges. I'm your host, Shreya, and today I'm joined by Eileen Meehan, who shares her personal journey of grief and loss after developing a voice disorder and how she found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. Eileen uses humor, honesty, and advocacy to spread awareness about voice disorders, accelerate diagnosis, and connect people with resources that truly matter. This episode is for anyone who has ever felt silenced, misunderstood, or forced to redefine who they are. Welcome, Eileen. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you very much, Shreya.
And Eileen, before we talk about advocacy or awareness, I would love to start with you as a person. So, when you first realized something was happening to your voice, what did that moment feel like emotionally and not medically?
I my husband, who has since passed away, was having a very important surgery in 2021. I was 62 years old, as was he. It was still COVID times. He was in the hospital, and of course, we were all wearing masks. I realized something that the staff was treating me with an unusual amount of sympathy. The doctors and the nurses and the patient care assistants were all treating me kind of like a child. And it dawned on me that they thought that I was crying because my voice had begun to break up in such a way that it sounded like I was stifling sobs. And in the time at that moment, I was very occupied with my husband's care and his needs. But in the back of my mind, I was a little bit horrified that people read me so wrong, that people in a situation where I had to learn how to feed him, how to give him injections, how to handle his medications. I had lots to learn and I was ready to learn it. But they just assumed that I was unable to function. Not true. So I attributed this problem to allergies, to perhaps a little throat problem, a little um, laryngitis, something like that. But it just didn't let up. And eventually, I sought a diagnosis. My first diagnosis was completely wrong. Um, but my second doctor was able to help me. By that time, my professional life had really been impacted. I was a kindergarten special needs teacher. So I worked with children with all kinds of special needs who were 5 and 6 years old. So I sang with my students. We read stories together. And mostly we did lots and lots of talking. And my children started having difficulty understanding me. That was really painful. I'd been a teacher for 41 years at that point. I also lost the ability to sing. Um, I had been singing in a choir at that point for 19 years and loved my choir brothers and sisters. And I loved the spiritual practice of singing. We believe that the person that sings prays twice. St. Augustine said that he who sings prays twice. So to lose the ability to sing to my students and to sing in my spiritual family was very sad, very, very sad. Um, of course, at the same time, my husband's situation was worsening. So there was a lot going on in my life, let's just say.
Thank you for sharing your story with our listeners. This is like I have no words. And also, like, what do people most misunderstand about voice disorders or voice loss when they haven't experienced it themselves?
Excellent question. People want us to get better. They want us to sound better. So they make helpful suggestions like using a lozenge or a cough drop or drinking hot tea with honey and lemon. Um, they'll say if you just rest your voice, it will be better. And in fact, voice disorders like mine are based in neurology. So this is based in my brain. And while I can do things to optimize my voice, I can't make it perfect ever again. I have a glass of water sitting nearby. When you talk, I'll sip on it. It kind of helps me, but it doesn't make my voice perfect. Um, So people don't get that. You know what my family does? My colleagues did. My colleagues were wonderful. And my family, both my family, my husband's family, have all been wonderful and accepting and um, have sort of traveled this path with me. But I'm a lucky one that way. Many people who have voice disorders have found rejection by their families in the workplace. They're accused of laziness or of having a psychological disorder, and that's not that's not it. Um, it's a neurologically based movement disorder that happens to affect the vocal cords.
Hmm. Yes. I think so much of what you are describing sounds like an invisible grief, and it's not always seen, but it's deeply felt.
Yes. Yes. And I did begin to see a therapist on a regular basis and still see her to this day. As I have been navigating this new normal of who I am and the things that I do. You know, I say that I come from a family of storytellers. There were 8 of us and we would eat dinner, 8 children, and we would eat dinner at a great big table. And I was the very youngest. And the way you kind of showed you were a big kid was to tell a joke that made my father laugh because there was nothing better than my father's laugh. And to go from that situation where being a storyteller was so much of who you are to being someone who's has difficulty at times getting the story out. And then, to be honest, as a teenager, I developed my primary language, which is sarcasm. And for the longest time, I could not express sarcasm with my voice at all. I'm a little bit better now, and I feel as though my voice does a better job expressing my mood and my emotions.
Yeah. And also, beyond the physical condition, what deeper emotional or identity level challenges did losing your voice bring up for you?
Well, it really, um, my intention in retirement was to teach English as a second language to adults. And I had had the opportunity to begin to do that. And I loved it, loved my adult students. We learned so much together. I learned so much from them. And I had spent a year and a half doing the coursework to add that to my teaching license. And so that was going to be what I would do in retirement. And I lost that as well. So I had to reconsider, who am I? Who am I in retirement? What is it that I do? What's my purpose? And I am someone who um, needs a purpose. I was brought up that service to your fellow man is meant to be a daily activity. And so teaching, of course, lined up with that beautifully. So I had to piece together activities and, for me, volunteer work that still fulfilled my desire to be of assistance. So I had to build that like I was building with blocks, one piece at a time, try it out. The first thing that I added to my world was um, a much more systematic spiritual practice, both in with myself, but also with others in a group. I put in physical activity to remain healthy. And then I started with my volunteer jobs. I work for a literacy program where we provide free books for children. And I work in their central office, but I also do um, activities and events for them. I tutor school age children on reading and math. And then I also work for Dysphonia International, which is the organization I'm representing today as a volunteer. Dysphonia International is the only patient run organization for individuals with voice disorders. We're a tiny, tiny organization with only 2 full-time staff members. Everyone else is a volunteer. And my work with dysphonia has been very, very, very rewarding. Um, so it's that putting those pieces together that made a new life. And it's something that I have to examine on a regular basis. Do I have the balance right? Do I feel physically well? Do I feel spiritually in tune? Where am I? Um, and right now I'm in balance, which is great, but that could change tomorrow and I might need to make a change, you know, in my, um, in my life. But I guess the thing that's been amazing to me is that there is that feeling of resiliency when you take good care of yourself, really engage in self-care. So that's your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health. When you really focus on self-care, then you have the energy to look outward to your passions and to your loved ones, in caring for your loved ones. Um, but It's a challenge. Um, and it's not where I expect it to be at this point in my life. To be perfectly honest, right now, I was supposed to be traveling the world with my husband. That's not what's happening, you know? Um, so, but what I have is good. It's good. It's not the same as I was expecting, but it's very good.
Yes. Like what stands out is how intertwined voice and identity really are. Like when one shifts, the other often has to rebuild from inside out. And how did the loss show up in your everyday life, like in relationships, in work, or even simple social interactions that most people take for granted?
I find the things that are most challenging sometimes are the very small interactions, like a clerk at a shop or a server in a restaurant where I have difficulty making myself understood. I carry um, pieces of paper with me, and I will frequently write out what I'm asking for instance. It's simpler for everybody involved. In terms of relationships, you know, I had dinner recently with some dear friends, and there were two rooms in the restaurant, and one was very busy with music and laughter, and one was quiet. And my friends didn't even didn't even ask. They just went straight to the quiet room so that we could have a good conversation. And I was so touched by that, that I didn't have to ask them. I didn't have to make a big deal. My friends knew if they wanted to talk to me, the quieter room was going to be more enjoyable for everyone. And I really appreciate those people. And, the world is filled with people that if you give them a chance, they will do their best by you. Um, and I only occasionally run up against ignorance, and that's usually from strangers or people who are afraid that I'm sick. We're close enough to the pandemic that um, people are still very worried about transmitting of germs. And so I find myself reassuring people, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. And you could tell they're like, oh, you could read that on my face. It's like, yeah, I saw that on your face. You thought I was sick. And you were fooled. Reasonable, reasonable. In terms of my work as a kindergarten special needs teacher, I will have to say that I retired early from that job. I retired a year early. I could, um, I could do it, and so I did. I had been teaching with an amplifier, and what I was seeing though is that I wasn't effectively doing my job, which was to teach children the sounds of our language and how that language is read and written. And I found that I couldn't transmit good, clear sounds, and that is not okay. I did not work for a teacher for over 40 years to leave my profession doing a bad job. I did not want to do that. And so I retired. And it was a blessing in that I retired about 14 months before my husband passed, so that we had 14 months of uninterrupted time together. And so, of course, I'm very, very grateful for that. And we made the most of it.
Like it's really powerful, and that constant adaptation you were describing takes an incredible amount of mental and emotional energy. And also, for someone who is listening and who is dealing with a voice disorder or any condition that has taken away something central to their identity, what would you want them to hear right now?
You are not broken. There is a path forward. There is places that will offer you support. Voice disorders are relatively rare, though most people, when they think about it, can think about someone they knew or know who sounded funny. And there's more than one reason. We can have voice disorders from surgeries or voice disorders from strokes, illness, or these neurological based ones. So, if someone is looking specifically at a voice disorder, I would strongly encourage them to go to the website dysphonia.org. And there you can find a wealth of material, education material, awareness material, support groups. We have support groups that meet, oh, so many per month, and most of them are via Zoom, and people are welcome from anywhere at all. As a matter of fact, we love to meet new people on the support group Zoom meetings. Um, if you want to dig more deeply, there are sections on research. There are resources for physicians and resources for speech and language pathologists. So the service that is the gold standard for this problem is Botox injections to the vocal cords. And the voice that I have right now is due to those Botox injections. My doctor and I have worked on dosage and exact location of where the needles go, and so that I have what I consider a pretty usable voice. Um, but the important thing, we lose other things. We lose, as we get older, we lose our hearing. We all do. It's almost universal. And we have to remember that we are still us on the inside. We are not broken, not us, not the essential human being. We're not broken. It's sort of the externals that are. And it's just important to find like-minded people, potentially a physician, potentially a mental health therapist, to help us find our actual, really authentic self.
Yes. And I think if there is one thing that this conversation makes very clear, it is that losing your voice does not mean losing your power. Sometimes it reshapes how that power is expressed. And this is truly, truly an amazing conversation with you, Eileen. Like, thank you for being here and trusting us with your story. I think your honesty and resilience mean more than words. And if after this my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
The best thing to do is to go to dysphonia.org, and in the information request, go ahead and request to be connected to me.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you. And to my listeners, thank you for joining us on Mind Over Matter today. If today's episode resonated, then take a moment to reflect on the ways resilience can look different than we expect. Share this conversation with someone who may feel unseen or unheard. And remember, strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is steady, creative, and deeply human. We'll see you next time, and do not forget to hit the follow button, subscribe, and also feel free to share your thoughts because your ears deserve premium content. Thank you.